Hello and good evening, everyone. Well, evening on the East Coast where we are. Maybe it's afternoon if you're on the West Coast, I suppose. But welcome, welcome, welcome. Give it a sec here. Let some folks make their way in. All right, we got everyone coming in. Very, very good. Why don't y'all let us know where you are located? We always want to know who's on the call. Drop in the chat there what state you are in. And how about maybe some colleges, top colleges that your students are hoping to attend or that you've gotten awards from? We've got some North Carolina, Florida, California. So Reed College, okay, cool, cool. Gonzaga, all right, yeah, the Ivies, got some Ivies there. Clemson, okay. I'm waiting for somebody to say the Indiana Hoosiers who are going to win the national championship next week. Murph, you don't watch the college football, do you? No,
I think I don't watch sports.
I know.
Had
I watch too much, so we balance each other. We're like yin and yang. That's good. Let's go dogs. That's right. That's right. I'm in Georgia. So, all right, Case Western. Very good. All right, very good. Okay, so thank you for that. That's pretty cool. College of Charleston. Oh yeah, that's beautiful. I live in Savannah, Georgia, so right up the road from me. A&M, Auburn, very good. All right, well, friends, appreciate that. Looks like we got folks from all over the United States and all different types of colleges, big ones, little ones, liberal arts colleges, Ivies, flagship research universities, all kinds. So that's good. So a little bit of housekeeping tonight. Great question, Tara. I was just about to say that. Yes, this webinar will be recorded, and you'll have access to the recording once it's over. I think it goes out tomorrow. Is that right, Murph?
yeah, it'll go out tomorrow morning, everyone.
Tomorrow morning you'll get a copy of it. So, yep, it will be recorded. All right. So, few housekeeping rules here. Few housekeeping rules. We are going to give a high level view tonight of some, what do you do now? I assume this is mostly parents of seniors on the call tonight. There might be some underclassmen, parents of underclassmen here, but we're assuming it's parents of seniors. And so it's kind of like, what do we do now? We got applied ED, got deferred. We're still waiting to hear. We're getting some offers, but not others, and that kind of stuff. So we're going to give you some kind of high level advice on what to do, things, next steps, what you can be doing right now in the process. But you probably have specific questions, unique circumstances, something like that. So you want to know, well, what I do in my situation. And when it comes to college financial aid, every family is totally different, different circumstances. So if you do have specific questions, we will do our best to try to answer those questions tonight. We really will try to do our best to answer as many as we can. But it helps if you put them in the Q&A, not the chat. Okay, put them in the Q&A, not the chat. We'll be manning the Q&A. It's much easier, logistically to answer questions in the Q&A rather than the chat. So if you drop a question in the chat, good chance we're not going to get to it. We won't even notice it. So put all your questions in the Q&A. The second way you can get your questions answered is at the end of the webinar tonight, we're going to drop a link in the chat and share with you how you can book a free 15-minute consultation with us. And on that consultation, we'd be happy to kind of give you some general advice about your situation, try to answer questions. And also, if you're interested in using our services, hiring us to help you with some of this stuff, we'd be happy to share with you, what you get, how much it costs, all that kind of stuff, our services. So like I said, at the end of the webinar, we'll put that in the chat so you have a way to book a free 15-minute consultation with us, get your questions answered, and maybe chit chat a little bit about our services if you're interested in those. Okay, so having said that, let's get started here. Let's do a few introductions, right? Let's do some introductions first. So
Look, I'm sorry not to interrupt you real quick. I'm just so curious. If everyone could give a thumbs up if you've been watching us for a long time, and a thumbs down if maybe this is the first time you're seeing one of our presentations. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, that's good. That's
Lots of
good.
thumbs up.
Good, good, good. Yeah, I talked to 12 or 13 different families today, and they're all like, we've been following you. We've been doing all your webinars and the podcast, and can you please help us? So yeah, that's good. Great, great, great. Looks like most of the people have been following us. Very good. Hopefully all this is helpful because this financial aid stuff is confusing and complicated and stressful. So hopefully this is all very helpful to you. Had a guy on consultation today say it is not like what it was when I went to college. Like that's for sure, brother. Okay. All right, so we'll do some introductions quickly here. My name is Jason Slone. I'm one of the college funding experts with College Aid Pro. A little bit about my background. I've actually been in higher education for a long time. I became a professor in 2002. So I've been a college professor for almost going on 20, close to 25 years now. That's crazy. And I was a dean for 7 of those years, 2 different universities. So I always joke I'm the former dean that spills the beans for parents on how all this works. So you can get more financial aid, insider tips. And then I've been a financial advisor. I am a financial advisor as well. I've been a financial advisor since 2008, and I got into college planning for personal reasons. Most importantly about me, I'm a parent of 3. I have 2 kids in college right now. I got a senior, I got a sophomore, and I have a ninth grader in high school. So parents, I feel your pain. I've been through this in your shoes. And that's actually why I got into college planning back in 2019, 20 or so. I had to figure out how I was going to pay for college for my own kids. And I was like, oh man, I took a deep dive into this stuff. I was like, every parent needs to know about this stuff. So been with College Aid Pros going on my 2nd year now and just absolutely love it here. So Murph, how about you?
Sure. I think it's to your point, it's like everyone needs to know this stuff. Our job, I
Everyone.
feel very blessed every day with our job because I feel like we get to help so many families. And there are times where this process is stressful, and trust me, we feel your pain. But anyways, I'm Kevin Murphy. I'm also one of the college financial aid experts here at CAP. I too got into this from financial services, a little bit of a different entry point than Jason, but I quickly fell in love with college financial aid and did not love financial services as much. So this is all I do. This is all I've done since 2018, and been blessed and fortunate to work with over 1,000 families. So I'm in New Jersey. Jason's down in Georgia. So even between the two of us, I think you're well represented geographically. But yeah, and I don't think you can stump us. And please, that is a challenge. Please try to with the Q&A. Obviously, there's some things we can't answer, but we're excited to talk to everyone tonight.
Yeah. All right. Very good. So why don't we kick it off?
Yeah.
I'll see if I can figure out how to run the deck. Did it work?
It works.
Yay. We're off to a good start. That's
I have
amazing.
to wear my tech support sweatshirt one of these days. We're gonna get better at this, everyone. We're gonna get better with the
I
slide.
promise. I promise. Yeah. Okay, so College Aid Pro. Our mission is we're trying to help families, we're trying to end the student debt crisis. There is a student debt crisis out there, and we are trying to battle that one family at a time, basically helping families shop smarter for college, understand how it all works and so forth. Okay. And so tonight we're going to be talking about, what you should be doing now at this step in the process. What next? Well, just in case you haven't completed your financial aid application forms yet, you need to do those. Okay. And so we just want to start out by saying this. I actually talked to a family yesterday and they hadn't done the forms yet. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's step one. We got to get you. So they signed up and they're like, can you do them for us? Like, yes, we can do them for you. So, but you got to get those in if you haven't done it. And we often will hear, parents say, well, it's a waste of my time. We make too much. We're not going to get any aid. Who cares? Oh, it's going to hurt my kids' chances for getting admissions, all this kind of stuff. And we're here to say that's not true. Okay. And so here are sort of our pitch for why you should submit the forms if you haven't done so, and why you should do them every year. Okay. Number one is you might be eligible for need-based aid and you just don't realize it. This is a big one. Like a lot of families like, well, we make too much money. We're not going to get any aid. And then we run their numbers in MyCap, and sure enough, they do qualify for aid. And speaking of that, if you don't have a MyCap account, you can go out and get a free one. Murph, do you want to drop the link to MyCap in the chat, just in case somebody on the call doesn't have a MyCap account? Assuming most of you do, hopefully. But if you don't, definitely go out and create a free one. You can put in up to 3 schools with a free version of our platform. Put in all your information. It's going to project out if you will be eligible for need-based aid. A lot of times you'll be very surprised. You might be. Okay. Number 2 is the other reason to file forms is even if let's say you do make too much money and you have too much in assets or whatever, you don't get any need-based aid. That doesn't mean your kid can't get any financial aid. Your kid can still get merit scholarships at schools that offer merit scholarships. But you actually have to file the forms to be considered for that merit aid. Okay. So here's another big mistake we see parents make is they're like, oh, we make too much. We're not going to file the FAFSA. we're not going to do the CSS profile. And then their kid could have gotten a scholarship, but they can't get the scholarship now because they didn't file the forms. They left money on the table, overpaid. Okay. Number three is this might be your only chance to apply for aid. So let me talk through this a little bit. There are a lot of schools where they have policies where if you don't apply for financial aid in the first year, you can't apply for years 2, 3, and 4. And there's some logic to that, right? Because some parents would think, well, we'll sort of game the system. We won't apply for financial aid in the first year. They'll admit us because we're full pay and they want to make money. But then we'll apply for aid in years 2, 3, and 4, and we'll go for cheap once the kid's admitted. And the schools are kind of onto that. And so a lot of these schools now are like, no, if you didn't apply year one, you're not going to get aid in the other years. So that's another reason. The fourth reason is, and we're going to talk more about this in depth tonight, is the appeals process. That's really coming up next. That's the big one for you, parents of seniors, is, the process is you file your FAFSA, your CSS profile in the fall, and you put all your math, you put all your numbers in there, your income and your assets and all that stuff, and then the schools look at the math and they make you an offer, and then you're starting to get these offers now. You can appeal those offers and sometimes get more money from them. Okay, but if you didn't file the forms, you can't do an appeal, and which makes sense, right? There's nothing to appeal because you didn't ask for financial aid. You didn't file the application forms. So very important to file the forms to be considered for appeals. And lastly, on our 5 reasons to submit the forms, if your student is going to use loans, and we highly recommend students using a little bit of loans. There's some skin in the game. They build some credit. It's not a bad loan, etc. The only student they can get without you co-signing is the Federal Direct Student Loan, the FDSL. And in order to get that, they got to file the FAFSA. Filing the FAFSA makes them eligible to get that Federal Direct Student Loan. So those are some reasons to file if you haven't done so. Now, how do you file? Okay, there's 2 forms, basically. Some schools have their own institutional forms, like University of Chicago, Princeton, but basically there's 2 forms, okay, with those exceptions. First is the FAFSA. Every school is going to require the FAFSA. No matter where you apply, you're going to have to file the FAFSA. You're going to file one FAFSA application and list all your schools on it. Okay. And the way it works is this is going to go live October of the senior year, but it's still live. It's still open right now. Okay. So you can still file your FAFSA if you haven't done so. And you have to up till, the deadlines that the school publishes. Some are February 1st, some are March 1st, some are May 1st. So pay attention to the deadlines of the school, but you still have time to file the FAFSA. And the FAFSA is connected to the IRS database. And so it's going to pull over your tax returns from the prior year. It's a 2-year look back, which means if your kid's going to college in 26, in the fall of 26, they're going to look at your 24 tax returns. And that's forward facing as well. So when your kid goes for the year 2027, they're going to look at your 25 tax returns. The year 28, they're looking at your 26 tax returns, et cetera. Now, in divorced, co-parenting, separated kind of situations, only one parent has to file the FAFSA, not both. And it's the custodial parent, which from a financial aid perspective is the parent who provides the most financial support. That's not necessarily the parent who makes the most income. It's the parent who pays the bills. Okay. And I've seen this a lot where one parent makes more and they even pay child support, but the other parent's really picking up the tab for travel ball and prom and insurance and car repairs and new tires on new phone and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So, and the procedure is the student is going to be the applicant and the parent is the contributor to the student's application. And you're going to create, each of you then will need an FSA ID, create an account. It's going to give you an ID, the student account, parent account, and you will need to use that ID to access the FAFSA to file it. Okay. And we have lots of information on how to do that if you haven't done so yet. And then the other major form is the application form is the CSS profile. And this is a private form that some colleges choose to use in addition to the FAFSA. The FAFSA is the federal form, okay, the free application for federal student aid. CSS profile is a private form that some colleges choose to use. And like the FAFSA goes live on 10/1, so it's open right now, right? You can file it right now. A couple hundred colleges that use it. Couple of differences. On the FAFSA, you do not have to put your home equity as an investment, common mistake. And if you made that mistake, you need to go fix it and then alert the colleges, and we can help you with that. That's a common mistake. But on the CSS profile, you do have to report your home equity, and it's treated as a liquid asset. They think, I had this conversation with the mom today, Kev, like, It was Notre Dame, and they were like, she's like, I can't believe our SAI was that high. I'm like, yeah, it's because you have home equity and they count it. You know,
Someone
Give
just
you
asked that before about why their SAI isn't what the school's charging them if they meet full demonstrated need, but CSS profile schools, they've got their own formula. It's complex.
it is very complex. So now we're trying to work with Notre Dame and do an appeal and see if we can handle that. But anyway, um, in another different is in divorce separated family situations, the CSS profile is different from the FAFSA. FAFSA, only one parent's got to file. CSS profile, in most cases, with some exceptions, they're going to want both parents' income and assets. So both parents are going to have to file. Okay. So the custodial parent does one, and then the non-custodial parent does a separate one. Now, if there are cases where unfortunately, complicated cases where there's the non-custodial parents not involved or whatever, you can request a waiver so that the non-custodial parent doesn't have to file. But to be honest with you, it's really reserved for extreme cases, where there's legal things going on or heaven forbid violence or something like that. It's not like, well, she just doesn't want to help or he doesn't want to participate. That's not good enough. Okay, both parents are gonna have to file to get aid. Okay, a couple other things about CSS profile. If you're a business owner, oh my goodness, buckle up. Put some comfy clothes on. Because there are going to be a lot of questions. The way it works is if you answer a certain question, it might open up three or four more questions, kind of thing. And for business owners, it gets really complicated. So if you are a business owner, you might want to talk to us about getting some help to check your CSS profile to make sure you didn't make any mistakes. Because it's very easy to make mistakes if you're a business owner that could cost you to lose out on aid potentially, just because of the trickiness of the questions and the way businesses operate and expenses and taxes and different schedules and that kind of thing. So very tough on business owners. I sort of feel sorry for business owners that have to do this. But generally speaking, it's much more invasive, much more complex, a lot more questions. Our joke is, at least my joke, I don't know if anybody else does this joke, but if you do the FAFSA, you can get it done in a glass of wine. If you do the CSS profile, you want to do the whole box. That tells you about my budget habits at using box of wine, right?
Says you drink box wine. Yes.
Too cheap to buy bottles, so. And you will submit the CSS profile at the College Board. That's the company that administers the SAT. They do the CSS profile. Now, the reason we say this is because that's step one. You got to file the forms. Okay, let's assume you've all filed them. Hopefully you have. If you haven't, do it. But let's assume you've all filed. Now what? Well, as you start getting financial aid award offers, you may notice, whoa, this is more than we expected to pay. We expected to get more aid or whatever. It's possible that you made a mistake. Okay. And so one of the things you want to do or ask, get our help to help you with this is to check to make sure you didn't make any mistakes. Okay. And what if you did? What if you put your home equity on the FAFSA, for example? Or what if you reported the student 529 as the student asset rather than the parent-owned asset? Very common one. Or what if you put all the sibling 529s together and counted all those when you only had to count the one kid? Or whatever. There's all kinds of mistakes that are very, very common. Well, you want to log into the student's FAFSA. I had to help a parent with this today. She was like, I can't get it fixed. I can't get it fixed. And I was like, well, you're going into your FAFSA. You got to go into the kid's FAFSA. Okay. So when you file the FAFSA, you log into the student's FAFSA, you see that it's been processed. It'll say processed as opposed to in progress or whatever. And then you can make a correction. Okay. And you're going to do that in this student's FAFSA again, not the parent FAFSA, the student FAFSA. Okay. And if you made a mistake on the CSS profile, if you did both, you would log into the CSS profile application because the CSS profile, there's only one application, it's the student application, and the parent contributes inside of that student application. So you're going to log into that and make the corrections, but it's different. The CSS profile is kind of goofy, really. It's like, really, this is 2026 and this is how you do this. But you can't make corrections in the actual field in the box where you've entered numbers or anything like that. You have to type it into a dashboard and explanation. Okay, so it's a little bit different. In FAFSA, you can make corrections in the fields themselves. How much is your cash and savings? But in CSS profile, you can't do that. You're going to have to type an explanation. So again, if you feel like you make a mistake or you're wondering if you made a mistake, definitely reach out and talk to us because we can help you with that. Okay. Now you've submitted the FAFSA. Hopefully you didn't make any mistakes, or if you made mistakes, you got them corrected. The next step in the process is going to be the appeals process. Okay, so you're going to start getting, some financial aid awards. Let's talk about that. Okay, so we're going to talk about the when, the who, the should, and the how. All right. So when do you appeal? Let's look at the timeline here. So the timeline, if you submitted your application for admission, you submit your FAFSA and your CSS profile, you get admissions acceptance. Then oftentimes schools will give you a scholarship offer. There's a reason why they give you that with the admissions offer. They're hoping that you'll take it. Okay. And then it's time to appeal. So you're getting to the part of the calendar where it's time to appeal. Basically, spring all the way through April is the time to do an appeal potentially. And there's two types of appeals you could do. You could do an appeal on the merit offer if you feel like the kid should have gotten more scholarships. And you can do, and then you'll get a full financial award offer that includes not only merit scholarships, but also grants, loans, work study, anything else they're offering. And then you can appeal those as well. So that's the general timeline. Now, if you're going to do an appeal, the first thing you want to do is figure out what is it they've offered you. And these letters can be tricky and hard to understand. So let's do a quick review of kind of financial aid 101. There's two types of financial aid. There's gift aid and there's self-help aid. Gift aid is the best because it's gift money, it's free money. You don't have to pay it back. So it brings the cost of college down. That's what you want. And the two types of gift aids are grants, which are need-based. They can come from the federal government, like a Pell Grant. They can come from the state. They can come from the institution itself, like a Harvard institutional grant or something like that. And here's where your SAI, your student aid index, matters a lot because to get grants, to qualify for grants, your student aid index has to be below their cost of attendance. The difference is how much you qualify for. And the other kind of gift aid is merit scholarships, and that's independent of financials. That's based entirely on merit, grades, test scores, talents. I always, tell where I went to undergrad. I went to undergrad college in Worcester in Ohio, a little small little arts college. We were the Fighting Scots, and we had bagpipe scholarships. You get a scholarship if you play the bagpipe in the band, so that's kind of cool. All right. And the self-help side of financial aid, it help. This is help that it's self-help in the sense that it helps you pay the bill, but it doesn't bring the cost of college down because you're not getting it free. So there's two types: work study, exactly what it sounds like. If you qualify for need-based aid, they'll offer you a job. Yeah, you can work in the cafeteria or work in the library or something. You go to work, get a paycheck. Again, not free money. It helps you pay the bill, but it's not free money. It doesn't bring the cost down. And then loans, of course. They're going to offer you loans. They're going to offer the student loans, and they're probably going to offer the parent loans. And typically, the loans they offer are those that are going to be backed by the U.S. government. Okay, the direct loan is when they offer the student, and the Parent Plus loan is what they offer the parents typically. Okay, and so just briefly on the student direct loan, the only loan a student can really get without you as the parent co-signing or you and the parent taking it out is the federal direct student loan. And it's only $27,000 total over 4 years. That's it. This is often very shocking for parents. They're like, wait a minute, how am I going to pay $300,000 for this degree if my kid can only take out 27,000? Yeah, you would be on the hook for all the rest, mom and dad. Okay. So, first of all, understand what they're offering you. So let's take an example of this. Here's USC. Okay. So their cost of attendance is $97,000. Yeah. There, lots of colleges are $100,000 a year now, basically. Okay. And if you look at it, you can understand, you'll start to see that of that 97,000, some of it's fixed costs. Sorry, I'm a financial advisor, and some of it's variable indirect costs. In other words, there's the tuition and fees that's fixed that you got to pay that to them. And then they'll give you, as part of that total cost, a bunch of estimates like your books might cost this, the housing might cost this, the dining plan might cost this, travel might blah, blah. So just know that when you see the cost of attendance, that's all in, but a lot of it's estimates. So might not actually pay that much because you might not fly home for holidays or whatever. Okay. Even though it's estimating that you will. So now look at this financial aid award offer. They're offering this family $53,000 in self-help aid. Yeah, they're calling this is financial aid, but it's self-help aid. It is loans and work. They're offering the kid $3,250 in a job, so you can make up to $3,000 basically over the course of the year by working in the library or something. They're offering that $5,500 first year federal direct student loans, $5,500 the first year, $6,500 second year, $7,500 years 3 and 4, $27K total. And then look at that. They're offering this parent $44,000 in a parent loan. That's you'll see this in financial aid award offer letters. They're offering you a loan backed by the U.S. government. So imagine you take that out times 4 years, you'd be looking at 180 some thousand dollars in parent loans. Okay. And so the remaining cost, oh yeah, you got to come up with that out of pocket. So this family is really paying full price, even though they've been offered financial aid of 53,000. Yeah, I know. You might want to go get a glass of wine now, right? Okay. So if you're going to do appeals, if you're going to do appeals, and we highly recommend you do them, in most cases, there are a few exceptions, maybe not, but in most cases, you probably should. There's two different kinds of appeals I mentioned earlier, merit-based and need-based. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about those. A merit-based appeal is going to go to the Office of Admissions. A need-based appeal is going to go to the Office of Financial Aid. Okay, why is that? Well, that's because the admissions office uses scholarships to try to incentivize you to enroll. So that's why you get your merit offer with your admissions letter. They're like, yeah, we really want you. We admitted you, and here's a scholarship. Please, please, please enroll. Okay. Whereas the Office of Financial Aid is responsible for meeting your financial need, your demonstrated financial need with institutional grants, loans, work study, that kind of thing. So depending on what kind of appeal you're going to do, you would send one, the merit appeal admissions, need-based to financial aid. Can you do both? Yeah, absolutely. Potentially you can do both. If you got a school that's offering you both, you can do both. Now, should we always appeal? In most cases, yes, but you got better chances in some situations than others. So, good candidates for appeal. Private college, first of all, private colleges. We have a much higher success rate we do have a success at publics, but I mean our success at private colleges with appeals that we do for our parents, like 80-90% success rate, something crazy. Um, Other good candidates for appeal. Remember the prior year rule? Well, what if in the year 24 you took out a retirement distribution, a one-time IRA distribution or something like that, and it jacked up your adjusted gross income for the year, made it look like you have more than you really do. It was a one-time event. Well, that's a good candidate for appeal. What if you've changed your marital circumstances? You used to have two income, now you're down to one. That's a good case for appeal. Now there you got to, watch out for whether or not it's a FAFSA school or a CSS profile school or, but that's a potential case for appeal. Business owners, I almost always tell business owners to appeal because there's the complexity in a business, in accounting and so forth. There's almost always opportunities there to make a case that, hey, as a business owner, I can't afford this kind of thing. And then a really, really, really good one is if you have better offers from competing colleges, not just any college, but competing college. Let me explain what I mean by that. Some schools are of similar types and they compete with each other for the same types of students. And so that you can use those against each other. So I mentioned I went to the College of Worcester as an undergrad in Ohio. They're competing with schools like Kenyon College, Denison University, Oberlin, Ohio Wesleyan. And so if you get a better offer from Denison, Worcester might match it. Now, I couldn't use an offer from Worcester to get a better deal at Harvard because Harvard and Worcester are not competing for the same kids. Okay, so, but if you have some better offers from competing colleges, that'll work. Here's some bad candidates for appeal. State schools, it's not impossible. It's definitely not impossible. It's just more difficult. But again, not impossible, but just not as probable as the private colleges. If you've had no changes in your circumstances, no one-time distributions, there's nothing has changed since the tax year 2024. It's hard to make a case because they're just looking at how much you make and they're like, well, you can afford this much. We see how much you make. And if that's changed, it's not a really good chance. Okay. By the way, if you're wondering, should we appeal? Do we have a good case? That's why we're offering the free 15-minute consultation. That's the main thing we've been talking with parents about for the last week or two is like, hey, what do you think? Do we have a chance for appeal? And if you do, we'll tell you. And if you don't, we'll tell you. Like 90% of the time, I'll say, yeah, you do have a good chance for it. But occasionally I'll be like, I'm really sorry. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you probably are not going to have much luck there. It's probably 1 out of 10 parents I talk to, but we'll be honest with you and we'll tell you. So if you're thinking about doing appeals, you got some special circumstances or whatever, book that 15-minute meeting and we'll tell you. We do so many of these that we can tell right away, like, yep, nope. And then if it's a yes, then you can talk about next steps. Well, how do we do it, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Okay.
You know what? I'm going to drop the link in the chat now, just in case anyone can't stay until the end of the call. I'll put the link in the chat now to grab time with us.
Okay. So, one of the things you're going to do to assess whether or not you have a good chance for appeal is look at the offer. It's like, what did they offer us? And again, we use that word offer on purpose because that's what it is. Financial aid officers are making you an offer. Like, hey, how about this price for the year? Um, and so you want to look at, what is the net cost projection that was in MyCap? That's a great way to tell. MyCap is pretty accurate, a little bit of variation, but way more accurate than the net price calculators on college websites. If y'all follow us on social media, we put the challenge out. If somebody, one of the parents, if any parent has a more accurate net price calculator from the school itself than MyCap, they win something. I forget what the prize is, but so use my cap and see what we project, and then you'll be able to tell, like, oh, they lowballed us, which happens. We know schools that lowball predictably by $10,000 per student per year. That's just their financial aid practice. That's what they do. And so check the net cost of my cap to see. Look at your student aid index. You can see, that's what colleges think you can pay annually. It's that benchmark. You can see it on your FAFSA summary. And then you can be able to tell, like, hey, our SAI was low. Why didn't they give us more aid? Um, and of course, the difference between the cost of attendance, which is the sticker price, and the SAI is how much need you qualify for. So you can look at my cap and figure out, hey, they're supposed to meet 90% of my need, and they only met 70%. Those kinds of things. All right. So again, it can be complicated, but we're happy to help you. Just give our professional expert opinion, like, yep, you should do an appeal, or no, you got to go to work and you're probably not going to get any more. We'll tell you. All right. So how do you do an appeal? Well, basically think about it like this. When you file the FAFSA, you file the CSS profile, you're basically just giving them numbers, right? Your income, your assets, blah, 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 blah. And they just kind of do math. They add it all up and they go, okay, you qualify for X amount of aid. Well, the appeal process is your opportunity to make a case, to tell your story, to bring color and background to your story. Family I'm working with, Cornell, a kid got into Cornell, and they're actually immigrants from Ukraine. And so they a very complicated situation. They're sending money back home to some parents who are in the middle of the war. I mean, there's just a whole bunch of background stuff that we're telling Cornell because they need to know this stuff about them. There's nowhere on the FAFSA to put that kind of information. This is what the appeals is all about. That's what the appeal process is all about. Okay. Um, Sometimes you want to ask for a specific amount of aid, and that can look like, hey, this other school gave me a better scholarship. Can you match it? Or if you can get to a certain price point, we will commit today, or whatever. Okay. Sometimes that's more effective than just asking for more money generically. Okay. If you're going to tell them you got a better deal, show them that you got another. In other words, show, don't just tell. If you got a better deal from a different college, share that with them. Say, hey, look, they made a better offer. Okay. Business owners, others, child expenses that weren't, not considered on the taxes. That is another good basis for appeal. You might have all kinds of expenses that they need to know about that just weren't captured, okay, on the forms. And here's another good one. Be persistent, demonstrate interest. Okay. Parents are afraid to do appeals. They're terrified of this. Like, oh my gosh, we don't want to offend the school. What if they pull the admissions offer?
I
You
had
know,
someone literally say this to me today. Literally, exactly, like
yeah,
word for word, word for word.
yeah. Their parents are scared of this. And it's like, no, 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 no. This is not a bad thing that you're doing. What you're doing, if you do it right, right? You want to be professional, you want to be persistent, but you want to be professional and polite. You're basically asking them to help you, to work with you. And so, it's really demonstrating interest. Like my kid really wants to go there and we really want to send our kid there, but we can't afford it. So help us. Okay. So it's not something to be scared of. It's just part of the process. It's great if the student leads the charge, especially for merit appeals. Because again, the student's the adult. The student's the one that's going to college, not you, mom and dad. They're the adult. It's their college, their education, etc. I know you're paying the bill, but they're the ones that they're going to be the students, so they should lead the charge because they're the ones that are going to be living there, going to school there, working and so forth. And lastly, when it comes to appeals, it helps if you don't put an enrollment deposit down.
Big
They're going
time.
to try to bully you and scare you and pressure you into putting an enrollment deposit down. Save your seat, save your seat, save your seat. But if you do that, you may lose leverage, right? Murph, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Anything you want to add?
Yeah, sure. Honestly, this is something that I think we got a couple of questions like when do you have to appeal by? And I'm not trying to answer vaguely or indirectly, but it depends on the school and it depends on how your student applied. I've done countless appeals so far where we had to get the appeal done by like Boston University, we had to get it submitted by 1/5. We heard back like 4 days later, they got an extra 8,500. And some of these other schools, early decision students, right, we've had to make them reach out to the Office of Admissions and request an extension because you want to request an extension. Even if you're going to have us help and your student applied ED, request an extension. Let us have more time. Let yourself have more time to prepare a good appeal. And you need that response before your student commits and you pay the deposit. So it you're not going to offend anyone by asking for an extension. And in terms of deadlines, you do have to check. Each school has their own appeals process, and it could get a little bit confusing if you're going to appeal, 5 schools. You honestly should just appeal maybe 2, maybe 3, but unlikely the schools that your student really wants to go to. Um, and just be ready. Don't worry about when the deadline is. Be as prepared as possible, as early as possible to appeal. That's why we're having these conversations now with families, but some of the folks who have us helping them with appeals, we're not going to actually send the appeal until the end of March. But the problem you run into is everyone's trying to appeal at the end of March. And you go from having your time to think through the reasoning and think through the strategy and think through what you're going to say to the college and fill out any required forms to you've got 2 weeks before your child has to commit and it becomes incredibly stressful, incredibly hectic. Emotions are running high. You don't want to deal with that. You want to be ready to go to send the appeal as soon as you get enough, offers, everything, which might not happen until March. Or again, maybe if your student applied ED, you can do it now. But as Jason said, try to get that done before you pay the enrollment deposit. And someone in the very beginning of the presentation wrote in about a change in job, right? That just literally just happened. If your
Yeah.
job changes, you lose a job at the end of February and March, you honestly aren't going to be able to appeal and get an answer because it's too new. So there are some situations where maybe you have to appeal after the enrollment deposit. I did one for a family at Boston College in George Washington. They had to wait 4 months, right? So just know that maybe for different reasons you can't do it before the enrollment deposit, but ultimately do your best to get everything done before you pay the school and tell them you're going there.
Yeah.
Don't
You make a really good point, which is parents, you should be thinking about drafting your letters now, right?
the
The
reason.
strategy, the reasoning, the collecting of data, like, the numbers. I had medical bills that cost me X, Y, Z in 2025, all that kind of stuff. So, because you want to get all this stuff in order, as Murph said, when you finally get your offers, and that way, when it's time to send them off, you're not scrambling at the last minute. It's super stressful. So, you really should be starting to think about and maybe put together all the information you need for your appeals right now.
Yeah.
Do you want to share some of our successes with
Yeah.
appeals so we can
Yeah, we didn't do
inspire
that.
some
That
parents?
yeah, for sure. We didn't do that other slide though. This one.
Oh,
Uh,
right. Go ahead.
yeah, I'll do this one real quick. So, in terms of need-based appeal items, keep in mind need-based is very different than merit-based, and who writes those appeals and who you send them to is all very different, right? But need-based, think home equity, right? We've already mentioned that a lot of schools use home equity, and that's going to significantly impact how much financial aid you get. And there's a lot of circumstances where you truly can't access the equity in your house, or there's different intentions behind it. If anything has changed financially, someone even wrote in that their house unfortunately burned down, and that impacted their finances. You name it, you're going to mention that to the college. My approach is we'll throw the kitchen sink at them. We'll see what sticks. Changes to marital status, 100%. If you were married in the year they're looking at, which is 2024, and now you're divorced, definitely want to tell them. I will say, if you are now remarried, I don't think that's something you necessarily want to write to them about. Especially if it means now you've got an extra person in the house with income. But kind of a joke there, but in all seriousness. Um, Medical expenses, health issues, even medical issues that are preventing you from working, right? You name it, that's loss of income. There's different things that you want to address there on appeal. If you own a business, as Jason was saying earlier, you probably have a good reason to appeal. What a lot of business owners don't know is colleges oftentimes add back losses. The way that they look at your business may not be exactly how you shared it with them, right? So usually when we work with families, we're combing through the tax returns and the business tax returns to try and pick out what the colleges themselves picked out and maybe add it back in. But business owners, there's usually some good reasons there to appeal. Anything that's one time. Someone said they got a big bonus, one-time income. Yep, you can appeal that. Um, you name it, IRA distribution. I could keep going on and on. Capital gains, one-time events, you can always appeal. And then think about what's asked on the forms, right? They ask for cash checking savings, investments, CSS profile asks for home equity, and so forth. They don't ask you how much personal debt you have. They don't ask if you have any student, well, actually, they do ask on the CSS profile, not the FAFSA if you have student loans, but they don't ask for a cash flow statement on the CSS profile. They don't know what's going on in your life and what hardships you have and what strains you have on your monthly cash flow. Those are things that you have to explain. Now, we love to explain how we were successful with appealing, but at the same time, humbly brag. So when it comes to Occidental, this was an instance we wanted to share because this was a home equity appeal, right? We were able to convince Occidental to remove home equity. And you can see here the initial offer. First off, it includes a lot of loans and work study, so we're not going to even factor that in. But if you look up top, we've got the $12,500 scholarship, but then that $21,787 grant. Could you click through, Jason, so they can see that after the grant? So it went from that $21,000 to $49,000. The scholarship stayed the same because we didn't appeal merit. But before versus after, almost $30,000 in extra aid. Think about that on a 4-year basis. It's 120 grand. That's why when people ask us, should we, is it bad to ask? Should we push? Should we go back a second or third time? We're dealing with such large sums of money. You're not offending anyone. You're not risking anything. You want to appeal. You want to fight for as much money as you can get, respectfully. This was a good one. This was a big success story. But Boston University, little bit of background. I didn't give it before, but I'll give it on this one. This family had, I think it was five or six rental properties. They had a one-time income. I don't know exactly. I guess you can call it an installment sale, but don't know exactly how I would classify it. But they had one-time income, and they had 5 rental properties, and a combination of the additional income, but really the equity in the rental properties. Boston University was like, you're not getting anything, right? You can come here and you can pay us $90,000 a year. And this particular family had twins, and they could not afford $90,000 a year, nor many people can afford $90,000 a year for college. So we wanted to do everything possible to fight for more money. And so those were all the reasons that we kind of disputed, right? The equity in the rental properties, the one-time income. We came up with other reasons as well, but the end result, from no aid to, drum roll, around
I'm
40.
sorry, I'm answering questions.
No, it's all good. I figured.
I'm like,
It's all good. Around $45,000. And I do want to point out that initial 28,800, that was the first appeal. The second appeal was another 15,900. And look at the names of the grants for the funds. So the need-based scholarship, that's what Boston University, typically awards. But then the second appeal resulted in Boston University appeal funds. Those are discretionary funds that Boston University has for these exact circumstances. So
can I add something there, Murph?
please.
So, being the former dean that spills the beans. All right, parents, I'm going to spill the beans on something here. College budgets. Most colleges have a budget for the fall semester that they offer to students on the front end, but then they got a bucket of money they hold back in the spring in case they need to give out more money. In some cases, it's for appeals. In other cases, it's in case they're not hitting their enrollment targets and they need to throw money at families to try to get you to enroll. Because the one thing a college does not want to do is under enroll for the class. They don't want to have empty seats in their classrooms. And so if it's April 30th and they don't have enough kids signed up, don't be surprised if more offers show up in your mailbox.
Even after May 1st now, don't be surprised. they're allowed to now continue essentially poaching the students. And don't be surprised if all of a sudden on May 1st, your student gets some huge scholarship from a school that originally didn't give them anything or even refused to give them additional aid on appeal. Because if they don't hit their enrollment numbers, they're going to try to hit them as soon as possible. So that's interesting. That change happened a few years ago. But all right, do you want me to talk about this one and then you can talk about the next one because that's your appeal?
Okay, sure.
Okay, so this family, this is like the definition of special circumstances, right? The dad became permanently disabled, literally could not work anymore, and zero chance of earning anything besides disability income moving forward. Because of that, we appealed, and the family had $1.5 million in non-retirement assets. But you can imagine, like, this is life-changing, and that family could not access or use that 1.5 million just without concern because that's their nest egg. That's what they're going to use for the rest of their lives. They also had an income drop, right? A $45,000 drop in income because of dad's disability, which also played into this. But you can see they got an extra $22,000 in need-based grants. And that means the college, which it's okay, but that means the college didn't remove the full 1.5 million, but they removed some of it, right? And they removed the income. And it doesn't always mean that they have to make every change that you need to get additional aid, right? Even if they make some of the changes that you're requesting or update some of the numbers, it still could be really beneficial in terms of the outcome as it was for this family. It's hard to convince a college to remove $1.5 million. Just you have to have really good reasons.
Yeah.
I'll kick this one over to you.
Oh yeah, so this is a crazy case. So Syracuse University last year, it was top choice school for one of my clients and one of the families I was working with, and the student got zero scholarship offer, zero merit aid. But shocking. It was like, what? What are you talking about? You know, they were so surprised. I was surprised. I said, well, let's do an appeal and see if we can get some. And so
Wait, did you update the numbers? No, this was the original slide. We never updated them.
we did not update. This is not right. Yeah. So let me talk through this.
Well, that was the initial wait. That was the initial result.
This is the initial offer.
Yeah.
So we did an appeal. The initial result of the appeal was $5,000. So savings out of pocket, 20 grand over 4 years. And so, you know, the parents like, well, it's better than nothing, I suppose, right? And we got our feedback. And so it's like, no, let's appeal again. And, you know, highlighting the strong academics, leadership experience, extra, all this kind of other stuff. And now, by the way, we got this other offer here. And Syracuse came back and said, how about $10,000 a year? So $40,000, right? And parents are like, that's better, you know, like, but still, my gosh, we're still looking at 80 some thousand dollars per year for an undergrad degree. This doesn't, you know, ever. And so they had a better offer at JMU, which did deserve to be in this college football playoff for the record. So I said, well, let's tell Syracuse you're going to go to JMU instead. They're like, oh, well, we can't do that. I'm like, yeah, and they're like, I was like, well, you should go to JMU instead anyway, you know, kind of joking with them, you know, and so we told Syracuse we're going to JMU instead. Guess what? Syracuse came back and offered $60,000 a year, $240,000 savings over 4 years. The family just couldn't believe it, and it was just an amazing result. Like the kid got to go to his top choice school and you know, for $30,000 a year cheaper than the in-state public where the family lived. It was just an amazing outcome. I was super happy for them. And kids there now thriving, and the parents don't have nobody's taking out loans because they have enough saved. So it's just fantastic. But that's the power of appeals. And they're not always that, you know, super high. I don't want to set some expectations, but you'd be surprised. You really need to go through the process to see.
Yeah.
All right. You want to take this one? I think this was your family, wasn't it?
We just got the result. That was the one I put in Slack the other day. But yeah, so this was a Barnard appeal, very complicated appeal. The family originally didn't apply for financial aid. They had a change in circumstances, but you can see the detailed and we actually did all this. The family and I put all this together, but cash flow worksheets, and we don't have time, otherwise I would share it. But I asked like alcohol, tobacco, literally like vacation, you name it, but monthly expenses for the family. And a signed copy of a tax return, that's standard. That's what you need to submit with most appeals. So that's not a big one, but additional documentation, mortgage statements, bank account statements for 3 months, you name it. It was a very, very, very detailed appeal. We actually just got that result the other day. That was a 5-month long appeal, by the way. So some people ask, how long do appeals take? And our standard answer is a couple of weeks, but there are some situations where appeals could take months, depending on the circumstances and how many times you have to escalate and who you go to and holidays, you name it, right? It could end up taking a very, very long time. But so for next semester, it's $33,205, but technically, right, it's $66,000 if you look at it on a full year basis. So did it pay off to spend that much time? Obviously, they hired us to help. So to pay us and to spend this time and energy and effort, yeah, I mean, this literally is hundreds of thousands of dollars that the family is going to save over the course of the next, at this point, 3.5 years. So it's 100% worth it, in my opinion. But anyways, we wanted to share this so we can show that appeals work. They're an important part of the process, right? You can see schools ranging from Boston College and Emory down to what do we have in the bottom? WPI and Chapman and UPitt, Elon, Baylor, you name it. And there are some public schools, Montclair State. I know Rutgers, if it isn't on here, should be on here. UConn, we had appeals at last year. But public schools are definitely an uphill battle for us, and we'll always be blunt and tell families that. Usually need really good reasons to get more money from public schools. But point is, there's a lot of money on the line. If you think about these numbers, like that Colby appeal was $74,000. It's times 4, right? I mean, that's life-changing money. It could change when you work until. It could change your student's ability to go to a particular college. So please do not skip this part of the process. And also make sure that, as we talked about in the beginning, if you haven't filed your FAFSA, if you haven't filed your CSS profile, to be able to do this, you need to submit them. So make sure you get them submitted. And if you have filed them, now's the time. Double check, see if you made mistakes, see if there needs to be any corrections. Anything you want to add here?
No, that's good.
Okay. We promised to talk about private scholarships, and the reason we save this for last and are not going to spend too much time on it is because it's worth your student investing time. But in all honesty, you want to focus on getting as much money as possible from the colleges. And when it comes to private scholarships, local is always best, right? There are national scholarships and there are local scholarships. You should always prioritize local, smaller number of applicants, increased odds at success. Now, when it comes to owning this, it's your student. The only part of this process in terms of scholarship applications you should be involved with, any financial requirements or telling your student your SAI or income or anything like that. And realistically, $1,000 to $3,000, like I think that's fair. I think that's what we typically see for students who spend 10 plus hours of work on scholarships. They end up getting maybe just 2 or 3 that end up totaling to that amount. And most of them are just a one-time scholarship. To find a recurring scholarship is pretty rare. And most deadlines just started hitting the deadlines, and then they will continue usually until March, sometimes even April or later of your student's senior year. And if we have some folks I know who have kids who are in college, they can still apply for scholarships. There's scholarships for in-college students as well. There's definitely just less of them, but that is absolutely something that they can still apply for. Now, in terms of applying, it's similar to applying to a college, right? You're going to have to fill out a form, an application. You might have to do an essay. So just keep that in mind and budget enough time to get that done. And the requirements could be totally different for each scholarship. So again, not saying to skip over this, saying it's important. Your student needs to be the one who's really handling this and focus on local primarily. If you have premium MyCap, you can use you can use our search engine, and then I know our the families who work with us also get exclusive access to a step-by-step guide, as well as access to our scholarship database, which I think has what, over 10 million in it now.
Yeah, something like that, almost
Yeah,
7,000 individual scholarships or something.
yeah. So definitely some options that we could help with here as well.
Yeah. I've gotten the same question about 5 different times. So I want to just answer it live for a bunch of people. One, and that is, do you have to apply? Do you get the same financial aid every year, or do you have to reapply? Is the gist. And the answer is that most colleges you're gonna have to reapply for aid every single year. And in most colleges, it can change every single year. Now, when it comes to merit scholarships, usually those are renewable as long as you maintain a certain GPA, right? Don't party too much. But the need-based aid can fluctuate depending on your student aid index. So if your income assets go up and down, you potentially could get more or less, which is a planning opportunity, to be honest with you. There's potential, in some cases, there's potential to get more aid in future years than in the first year if there are going to be changes or you can make changes. So that's something you might want to talk to us about as well, is like strategies for getting more aid in future years. So sorry to interrupt, but that question,
No,
I got that several times.
no worries. And just to clarify, the reason I said multiply by 4 and those off, I I did those appeals, the ones that I said that for, like Colby, and I knew that family circumstance where they would have continued getting that. But to Jason's point, the appeals could change the price for 1 year, and then second year, if your income goes back up, maybe the cost of college goes up, then you have to appeal again. You can continue appealing when your student's in college. Nothing stops you from appealing.
Mhm.
But we want to offer everyone the chance to talk with us. Let us determine if you have an appeal, right? And we're not going to write your appeal letter in 15 minutes or anything like that, but let us figure out if you actually have a valid reason, if it's honestly worth the time. And then if we feel like we can save you tons of money, we'll talk through what we do. We had a few questions about what we offer for appeals and how to engage us and all of those things. We try, every family we work with, we do our best to make sure that anyone who hires us is going to see an ROI, is going to have a good outcome, is going to save money ultimately. And again, that's why it's really important to talk with us. Um, if you are going to meet with us, again, we're excited to talk with you. Just please try to, especially if we're talking about appeals, try to complete your MyCap account to, I believe it's 23%, and just have a sense of what schools we're talking about. But that's it. We try to ask for the bare minimum to have this conversation with you. And two, keep this free. And to meet with us, you do have to schedule it by midnight tonight. And I already checked our calendar. We don't have a ton of spots, but you have to meet with us before 1:24. So I would really encourage, once I'm actually going to look here to see how many are left. Yeah, there's still a few, but just make sure to take up the opportunity to book that before the end of the night. And you don't have to meet with us today or tomorrow or anything like that. Just try to meet with us by the end of next week. So, but anything you want to add here?
No, other than it's we won't be able to give you like specific advice if you're not a client. Like there's no, but we'll give you as much general advice as possible. But the big one's going to be, are we a good candidate for appeal, basically, and how should we go about it? Do you want to try to DIY it, or you want us to help you or whatever? But step one is to figure out if you have a case.
We'll be very blunt.
Hmm?
So forgive us for that. If we
Yeah.
get on a call with you and we say you have zero chance to appeal, like someone asked me before in the chat if they could use Clemson against South Carolina. They don't care about competing offers. And we'll just be very flat out. And again, it doesn't mean you have to work with us or anything like that. We're going to determine if you can or can't. And listen, if you haven't even filed the FAFSA and you want help with that, or you're just unsure where to even start, you can still meet with us. It doesn't just have to be to talk about appeals.
Mm.
But let us just figure out where you're at in this process and essentially what you should do next.
Yeah.
Again, don't hate us for being blunt. If you get on the call and we say, you're not getting any more money from Penn State, we don't mean it in a bad way. We're just being honest. That's what we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
We'll try to apologize before we say.
we'll
Uh,
prepare you.
All right, well, it's 8 o'clock, so hopefully that was helpful and gave you a sense of next steps. I would wrap up by saying you should really start thinking about your appeals now, even if you're not going to send them till March or April. You need to start preparing now. Get your documentation ready. It's thinking about strategy, maybe even drafting your letters, et cetera, so you don't panic at the last minute and only have a week or two to do them. And then secondly, talk to us and we'll give you an honest assessment of whether or not you have a good case for appeal. And if you do, then we can discuss some next steps if you want help or not.
I just wanted to share this real quick. On here, we do have details. And then in addition to that, we've got details on premium membership. And tomorrow, there will be a recording here. But yeah, as Jason said, take the opportunity, talk to us. Hopefully we can help you. Hopefully you have an appeal. We want everyone to get more money on appeal.
Yeah, I love appeals.
Me too. But yeah, thank you everyone for taking the time to. If this was your first presentation, watch us for the first time. If you've been watching us for a while, watch us again. And we wish you the best of luck with this process.
Yeah. Good night, everyone.
Good night.